and we're getting them put on the list. But I think Steve said we had a little more room if we wanted to add anybody.
Okay.
But he said that relationship's been going really well with the national office.
Yeah, I've got a list from Steve from 2 days ago with 11 names on it, and 2 possible from the special events folks that he was asking maybe if there might be an exchange of some kind. I was emailing with Kate Newman. I don't know if he's been in contact with you after that. He said he was going to talk to you in that email, but I don't know if that's actually happened or not.
Okay. I think I'd put future in there just to say that we're still, it looks like the future of the Light Lab is going to be in the special events, and I think our commission has embraced that. I don't know that sound has embraced that yet, but the key is going to be getting the hands-on feature back from the Light Lab that we lost when we moved to special events, and I know they're working really hard to get sort of a little mini lighting studio just sort of set up. So hopefully we can move forward with that this year. It looks like it's on track so far. So, okay. So let me move on to the next thing. Unless there's anything else about programming or anything else about I got some other conference things I guess to talk about. So, special projects. I was waiting to hear Adam was going to email me today or call me today, but we haven't had a chance to touch base about special projects in a little while. I know conversations have been started with the lighting graphics. I know he has. There's some email conversation. They put together a questionnaire to send out, and as soon as we get that for public, I'll send that out just so we can get people sort of answering, sort of talking about what needs to change in the graphics. He didn't want the conversation to start, but it did start. The group just started talking about things to change, and it was an interesting conversation to say the least. But I think it's behind. I think they wanted to be further along when they were. I mean, I think they wanted to have a draft by March, and there's just no way it's going to happen. So that's something we're going to need to talk about just as leadership about how we can make this committee work more efficiently. The lighting networks, I can tell you, is dead in the water again. Adam's been trying to get it started again, and it still hasn't. It's sort of it's had a couple false starts, and we still haven't gotten it going. I really need somebody to step forward who can just sort of take the bull by the horns here and help me get this going. So if anybody out there is interested in that, feel free to either say something now or send me an email and say, hey, Todd, this is something I want to do. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's does everybody know what it is? Do I need to explain? Anybody need to know? All right, I'll go ahead and explain it. Which is, it's just, thank you. We don't have a way to codify or document how lighting networks or just general networks. Well, I'm speaking to it from a lighting perspective because that's our commission. But if you've got a network of computers, you got a network of consoles, even DMX network. The light plot really doesn't account for that. So and people are doing it. People are simply doing schematics, basic system diagrams like Sound does. Sound's got recommended practices for that, and I'd like to create recommended practices for that, just to help give people who've never done it before at least some sort of guide on how to do it. If you look at the sound graphics, I'm thinking something really similar to it, but really addressing lighting networks and projection networks in particular. So if anybody's interested or passionate about that, please, I need some help. It's my passion project, but unfortunately, I've found that doing all this other stuff is keeping me from getting that project moving. Okay, well, cool. Projections working group. This is interesting. In our August meeting with the commissioners, I don't even remember how we got this started. Autumn, do you? Essentially, finally, somebody broached a subject and said we need a projections commission, and how are we going to make that happen? We threw Autumn under the bus, and she is putting together a group of interested people, and there's going to be a meeting. We're not saying that it's going to be the Projections Commission yet because we're still sort of waiting on the details about how we create a new commission, if the board's even going to let us. But there is a working group. I put it on the agenda here. It's Thursday, March 9th, 11 a.m. to 12:15. If you know people who are interested in this, one, we got to get the word out. If you know people who are interested in being like in a leadership role for this, Autumn is the go-to person. What am I forgetting to say about this, Autumn?
It's still really early in the process, and it is a little bit unclear whether we're going to be allowed to make a new commission. On the other hand, I think we need to figure out what it should be, because right now projections gets covered by education and lighting and scenery and architecture, which it belongs in all of those places. I think everybody agrees with that. But at the same time, there are things that are sort of falling in the holes between those different constituencies. So that's really what the working group is to sort of figure out like who would fall into this, do we need a separate projections commission, which I think we absolutely do. Is this a big enough group for us to serve as a commission? What sort of programming would it be? What are the goals of the commission? So while we're not necessarily going to be putting together a handbook, sort of looking at some of the other commission handbooks and figuring out, are we going to meet these needs? Is this something that we actually want to do if we're sitting in a room talking about it? So I think what I'm really looking for in this first meeting, I think, are people that are actually doing projections. And not just sort of, I guess, poking at it a little bit. But if people that are getting paid legitimately to do projection work, because I think that's where we need to start. Certainly, the educational side of things we will fill in, but I think we need to start with people whose jobs it is to do projection design, and building those sort of projection networks, and then work backwards from there. So it's going to be a relatively small group, I think, to start with, but I also think that's going to help us sort of find a real guiding principle. So while yes, please invite people, I also don't want to end up with 60 people in the room so that we can't get anything done. So, but do send those names to me. Currently, I think I've got 6 people other than myself that are sort of on that list. So pass them along, and I'm happy to hear.
Great, thank you. Oh, great, thank you. That helps if I unmute. Okay. Next thing I just wanted to touch base about were the meeting schedule for us. I know somebody was asking about this in an email the other day. Currently, we have scheduled 3 meetings. We'll have our Tuesday night meeting, which is at 6:30. We're still pending room on that. I know they got one for us. It's just not public knowledge. So Tammy, I'm sure she'll get back to me like in an hour or two, knowing her. But that'll be at 6:30 somewhere over in the conference center. I'll try to keep that as short as possible.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah.
She answered you on that.
She did.
It's room, and I did too. It's room 265.
Wonderful. I'll put that in there right now. Great. And see, I knew she would. So the key there is going to be getting, and again, I'll talk about program a little bit later, but starting to pare down the sessions, because that's what we did last year. And I actually think it worked out really well. So we can walk into Commission 1, and we'll deal with whatever, any other business that we need to deal with. I'll try to get as much of the other stuff out of the way so that when we get there, that can be our main focus, is really paring down the list, so that we walk into Commission 1, we can start recruiting, getting some feedback on the session, start recruiting session chairs and figuring out panelists and stuff like that. And then also getting feedback for DAA. I mean, I'm sure I've got a big list of stuff that we're gonna have to deal with. And then the goal would be for Lighting Commission 2 on Friday at 8 a.m. And guys, I apologize. This year, there's not going to be any refreshments. We're going to do we're going to put the money towards a light lab reception instead, which I think is worth doing. for those who haven't already heard, it's $28 a pizza. But we'll figure that out. Okay, and then possibly decide, get a sort of a final decision on what the DA is going to be. But that second meeting should be a big working meeting, trying to start putting people together, putting leadership together, putting VCs together with session chairs. This is where I want to open up to you guys for a second, just on the meetings in general. Looking for some suggestions. I know right after the conference, a few of you gave me some great feedback, sort of on things to improve. Those meetings always feel rushed to me, and it didn't help when I love Dave's tradition of asking everybody to speak and say hi, and I thought that was very inviting. But it's becoming one of our more popular sessions, actually. So once you get 80 people in there, it's hard to have everybody say hi and then still have time to do anything. So I want to play with that a little bit. But what are some thoughts or suggestions from you guys on how to make those meetings better, knowing that looking at the agenda, those are sort of the main goals that we have to get done?
Well, I know, like you said, the saying hi thing was, it's cumbersome, but I think it does make people understand it's okay to talk and communicate. I think new people can be fearful about walking in and saying something in a meeting without knowing that they can or they should.
It might be helpful if we're considering the reception to do the reception before the first meeting in future conferences, so that way that introduction can happen earlier, and then they get a more sense of comfortableness before coming into that first major meeting.
Well, it's just usually where that first meeting is. Unfortunately, it'd be like our reception will be right after keynote. But yeah, that's definitely a thought. Because if in non-Light Lab years, if we're not paying for that reception, that might be a great idea. But I don't know. Any other thoughts? Where else do we get bogged down in those meetings?
Is there anything else to be gained from dividing up a little bit earlier? I mean, we're dividing right now when we get to, Light Lab versus session chairs, but even in terms of asking for session ideas, there are people who are very involved and want to give ideas for sessions. There are other people who check out during that time. So I wonder if all of the business that's full group needs to be full group, or if there might be certain things that might be able to, general business could be dispensed with more quickly, and then, or more, maybe not quickly, but if everything that was addressed in the general session was specifically necessary for everyone to hear, and then we could break into small groups more quickly to discuss other stuff in greater detail.
Okay. Yeah, I think that key is making sure everybody understands that, and this isn't our fault. This is just the way the process is, that the time for presenting ideas for sessions is unfortunately before the conference. And really getting just feedback on the sessions that we do have. But okay, cool. Other thoughts, other ideas? All right, I'll start working on the agenda, and I think the key will be me keeping the agenda not crazy like I've done in the past. I mean, I think I've tried to shoehorn too much in sometimes, and really be clear about what we're doing in Commission 1, Commission 2. Commission 2 really should be the working meeting. I mean, that one should be the one where we talk about a few things, and then we divide up and really start tackling programming. So.
And Todd, I just had a thought for both meetings. If we had all the vice commissioners sort of already in there, spread around the room places when people are walking in, and have a couple people at the door who encourage people to, as they walk into the meeting, maybe go and talk to those people beforehand, might help people get more involved.
Well, and maybe it's
in the first 5 minutes or so, maybe break into groups before we do anything, almost in a way.
I like the idea though of spreading everybody out, like kind of like what you're talking about, and then 2 or 3 minutes of, find your closest, leadership person, and just everybody introduce yourselves among each other, and then introduce yourselves to one of them, so that we've got that sort of connection. We're starting to make the connection with the leadership. So that's a great idea. Cool. All right. Anything else? So let's talk about the process for next year. We need to double check with Jesse, Autumn. I don't know if we've done that. I've been meaning to do that, but do you want to do that? Do you want me to do that? We just need to touch base with him to make sure he's still on board. I just haven't heard from him in a while.
Yeah, I can do that. We do have the link.
We do.
We do. It's not live yet, though. But because we were going to put the article in Sightlines, I made Monica give it to me. So I have it. It's in the Sightlines article that will be out in February. But I don't want to add it to this agenda yet until it's actually live, because it could be confusing.
Yeah.
But it will be in the Sightlines article, and Deanna and I put together a quick sort of rundown of how to submit sessions and what it is we're looking for programming. But I will check in with Jesse.
Okay.
I will say I have been copying Jesse with just about everything,
Sure.
and he hasn't like screamed stop. So he's probably still there somewhere.
Okay. For those who may not know, we're talking about Jesse Portolo. He's gonna be the vice commissioner for programming for 2018. Yep. So here's how this process works. It's different this year. We used to always do our own thing, and they're really trying to get all the commissions to do the same thing, and everybody except costumes. Costumes they're always off on their own. You have to submit ideas to this program, and then we'll do a printout of that before the conference, and we'll that's how the ideas are presented. The idea is, when we find those sessions that we like, we don't have to put in a bunch of information. It's already been done for us. The challenge is we rarely take submissions 100% from a single person. We typically will combine a couple sessions and stuff like that. We still have to enter in, but that's pretty much what we did this year. And I mean, I don't think it was as bad as we thought it was going to be. Is that correct, Deanna? It wasn't horrific entering those in, or was it?
No, Autumn and I kind of sat down on the floor and powered it out. It wasn't that bad.
Okay.
No.
But hopefully
It's a little organizational skill, but it was okay.
The hope is, though, this will make it easier at some point if we do. So once that link comes out, I'll email it to you. Once it goes live, I'll email it to the commission leadership. I'll put it out in every way that I can communicate with the commission. We have to get ideas. We have to make it. There's typically one person who probably throws in 10 ideas, and then there's probably 2 or 3 ideas from everybody else. And I've put out all the ideas that I could think of, so I need somebody else to help, because I'm usually the person who has 10 ideas, because I'm a geek and I sit around and think about this stuff. But we need to get ideas out. We need to talk about how we can, and I want to open it up again here to talk about how we can improve programming. The thing that the Institute is really hammering us on is really trying to attract more professionals, and really getting the level of programming up so that we can attract professionals. I mean, there's lots of things wrong with that. There's some things that are wrong with that idea, but I'm not going to get into all those now, because I think it's a little too much. But from your guys' standpoint, well, I think our biggest problem is, particularly our commission in general, we're trying to service too many people. We're trying to service lighting design, lighting educators, projections, design, projection, technology. We need to try to think about a history session. We need to think about a diversity and inclusion session. So I think we may be spreading ourselves a little too thin. That's the only thing I'll say about all that. What are your guys' thoughts? What are some ways we can sort of get the level of programming up and stop this, I teach this one subject in class, let me just do that as a session, which is really only good for not very many people. So, all right, what are your guys' thoughts? Okay, I'm going to call on. All right, I'm going to call on somebody. How about that? Andrea, what are your thoughts? I know you always have an opinion, so come on.
I've always been in. I don't know. I don't know if I'm in favor right now at the moment of having more of a vetting process like they do in the academic world, where it's you have a session already formulated and bring that to us rather than just here's a topic. That's what I want to see is this topic, which I feel like is a lot of what we do. It's I would be interested in seeing this. I don't know anything about it, but I know some people who might, and that's kind of what it feels like we've gone towards in I get for a lot of years, 10, 15 years now. Is it feels that way to me. That may not be the case. That's just what I'm seeing. So I don't know if that's a way is to have, if you're going to pitch an idea, then it's something that you are actively working on. But that at the same time might limit us. So I don't really know if that's a good idea or not.
I know Linda's been a big proponent of that for years, moving to that sort of model. The challenge I've got is even the suggestions we get they're just they're not at that level. But I agree. Okay, I'm sorry. I shut up. What else?
Oh, can I say something about that? I think what would be helpful is if it could be both. If people working on a research project and they could then and I guess they can, if they know about it, present something that's already ready to go. That they've been working on, because it seems it puts an awful lot on the chairs when somebody suggests an idea and there's just been no footwork at all done on it, and they have to then go out and find people that not only know about this but then are willing to come, are free, willing to wait for the funding to come through or find their own funding. It's just a lot. I think it would be better if it was a hybrid sort of thing where there was a place for people who'd already got something together and it just goes in, and then that way you could eliminate some of the pressure on the chairs. It's just from my perspective this year, because I think it was a lot. There were a few people who really didn't know what to do, and we sort of had to walk them through it. I think you're muted, Todd.
Let me see.
Oh, there we go. Now I can. Maybe it's because I'm talking. I'll stop talking.
No, I think you're right, and I've seen a couple of the sessions in which I think we've had in our leadership meetings had great ideas, and it's like this is what the session should be, and it's just the one that comes to mind is the modernizing lighting education. Just is completely different than what I originally proposed, which is okay. It's just, yeah.
The challenge, I mean, I've chaired a couple sessions, and the challenge is that there's sort of different Venn diagram circles of people. There are the people that you'd like to be in the panel. There are the people that are at USITT. There are the people that are at USIT and are actually available during the time that the session is scheduled. And unfortunately, those three don't always overlap. And so the most successful panel that I put together was one that I thought everybody completely on board, signed off, sealed. I knew who was going to be on the panel when I left the conference the year prior. And it was mostly because it was a technology thing. It was mostly folks that were related to vendors or were working for vendors. I thought everything was in a row. I still had the most difficult time in the world getting people to communicate during the off non-conference part of the year. And then when I got to the conference, I discovered that one of my people, fortunately only one, had double booked themselves and was not able to be at the session that they had promised they'd be at a year prior to that. So I don't know. It's challenging logistically, and I think it's challenging logistically for, especially if someone has never chaired a session before. That is an awful lot of wilderness to navigate and try to figure out who they should be talking to that actually could potentially be there, and then figuring out what carrots or sticks to present to actually get them in the door to do the thing. I don't necessarily have a solution to that other than to say, going back to what you started with and in talking about how we're spread too thin, the thing that I would, as a thought experiment, I guess this isn't necessarily, I would stop short of a suggestion, but if we realize that although we are sort of a larger umbrella of lighting commission, we are fulfilling various roles within that. We have an educational component, we have a professional component, we have a diversity component. Instead of assigning a chair to a panel, is there something to be gained by putting our educational sessions into sort of a bucket and having a number of people work on those sessions together instead of one person being responsible for each one? So then you could have folks that are more geared toward education within the Lighting Commission work on the educational sessions. If you have people that are in Lighting Commission who don't ever step near a university, they're only working with professionals, maybe they're getting the sessions to work together on that are more geared towards professionals. It would be a way to, it's a starting point of a built-in network instead of having one person try to create a network to find the resources all by themselves.
You know what? No, that's a really great idea. Here's, sorry, my brain's just going. I like the idea of sort of little working groups, and maybe that's what we break off into in Commission 1, and because one of the things we've been trying to do, and I don't know, it's every year it's getting better, but it's still not where it needs to be, which is having the VCs supervise sessions. I mean, Deanna and Autumn, I mean, some VCs, you guys know, some are helpful and some are not. So I think getting them more involved, but saying, okay, in that first meeting, all right, here's like Josh, we'll use Josh, he's the education one. Hey, here's the list of the educational ones, the 2 or 3 educational ones. Why don't you guys, want to get feedback on this, and then, but get that working group of people that then he's got a list of people that are interested in that area. The challenge is, and I think Andrea has told me this before, which is the challenge always is when you want to go to more than one area. And, but I like that idea of putting together working groups so that it's more than just one person responsible, and then you pull your chairs from that working group.
I like that better too. It's pretty similar to some of the things we've talked about in the past of could we or could we not, because it's how do you get more interest into the commission and kind of break through the little group that we've created within ourselves. How can we get them more involved? And that gives the VC something more to do, and make them feel a little more a part of what's happening as well.
Right. Okay. Any other thoughts about programming?
As far as bringing in more professionals, have we ever ventured doing the opposite? Right now, we're talking about picking a topic and then seeking out professionals that can suit that topic. How about picking the professional and figuring out what topic that professional can seek? And in some cases, maybe just seeking out a group of professionals, or even a vendor, like a design firm. So one designer backs out, there's other associates related to that firm. I also think, jumping off of Nate's idea of the group thing, I think that's a good starting point as well. It may be focusing on presenting a diverse programming and not necessarily worrying, do we have an educational topic? Do we have a topic on history? Do we have a topic on design? Just mainly thinking, do we have a diverse group of sessions that we're presenting?
I like that idea of really reaching out to professionals. We would have to do it in this current way ahead of time. We'd have to do it like before we hit conference, but go to Richard Cadena and say, okay, hey, what would you like? What could you do for us? What would you be interested in? Go to,
Yeah, you'd almost have to work in your head to do it that way. Did you catch that? I was saying you almost have to work in your head to do it that way, because of the way the programming is set out, you kind of need your topic by the time you go into that programming meeting.
Yeah. Oops, did I mute myself? I did. Yeah. No. Yeah, you're right. Actually, Herman, can you mute yours? I think you're feeding back right on us. But yeah, I think that's better than trying to shoehorn, trying to find somebody. And we kind of did that with the PDW, but because Kurt had found these great people to do the protocol stuff, but then when they both dropped out, the session died. But it's just finding some backups and stuff like that, I think, is a good idea. But reaching out to a designer, and saying, hey, what do you want? What would you want to present? As opposed to, hey, come do the dance one, which is what we did this year. I mean, I'm very happy we got great panelists, but yeah, it might get some more interesting, yeah, okay, cool.
I think because the link's going to go out in February, but if we are interested in sort of that approach, which I think would totally serve us, then, if there's somebody you want to hear from, then contact them. And just, we have a month basically, from February to March to contact them and say, hey, I'd really like you to be a part of this. There may be funding. There may not be funding, but it's service to our industry, and maybe, play on the fact that, they can serve the profession more and, colleagues, but also students, and go from there, right? Because we can do it a year out, if that would be helpful. And there's no reason that we can't take that approach now. We just have to do the reaching out ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, let me just ask that of you guys for now. I mean, don't make any, obviously we need to figure this out a little bit, but if you have ideas of people who you want to see present, contact them, say, hey, what would you be interested in doing? What would you be interested in seeing? And I think if we can start that way, when that link comes out, we can either put them in touch to put in some session ideas, or we put it in for them. But also having those people, I mean, it's something we never have in those early submission ideas, is really decent really decent panelists. And having that ahead of the game would only help us immensely. So, okay. This is all great. I'm going to pick on somebody I haven't heard anything out of Anthony. I haven't heard anything out of Elizabeth. I haven't heard anything out of, oh, that's Autumn. Never mind. I thought I saw Adam come in, but guess not. Okay. So somebody else say something. Or what are your guys' thoughts? Those of you who haven't said anything yet. Or CC. I haven't heard CC yet.
I came a little late, but I missed the initial question. But from what I'm gathering, I do think I have pretty much agreement with. I do like what I think what Herman said regarding approaching kind of reversing the order. To me, that's a really interesting way to look at it at this point in time. I don't know if necessarily have anything new at this point, but to improve the programming. Ultimately, for me, everything I run into and anyone I've talked to, I've run into is getting people to commit that far out, and I don't know how to change that. It just seems like you think you have a group of people together, and then it falls through at the end. Even with the early deadlines, where we submit so many things early to say, here's the agenda, here's my panel, here's what I need, and then all of a sudden, a week out, the floor drops out on you. That seems to have happened more often than not, and I don't know if it's just getting people to stay committed, and I know that's difficult in our industry with changes, especially with professionals. Those of us in academia, we can kind of stay to our schedules, but if you have a pretty high a highly influential panelist and all of a sudden the floor drops out, trying to find a replacement. But maybe we need to get replacements. Maybe instead of saying, here's panelists, panel one, here are my alternatives, maybe we need to start booking alternatives for those panels as well, and having those people as backups earlier on as well when we're submitting a panel.
No, that's a great idea too. Definitely having backups ready to go. The challenge always is, though, when you really want to get a good expert in, there's only a few of those in the country. So, but no, I think that's because, I wish we would have done that with the dance lighting one, because that was one where we had, a great panelist drop out because, well, he's having a child, but we found somebody quick. But we also have to get national to help us a little bit, because one of the things they did with that session was they took away our funding for that person. We found somebody and they gave us back funding, but they gave it back to us like, what, 2 days ago? So that's something we got to get them on board with. Okay.
Something else to maybe look at is the city in which the conference is going to be in. For example, I know that apparently somebody was talking to Al Crawford about doing a dance lighting session, and he lives right here in Miami. So he's somebody that I can easily reach for example, next year in Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
And he's got his own design firm and something else. But anyways, just researching whatever city the conference is in and figuring out who the top lighting peers are in that city and kind of gathering them up. It would save us on costs of flying somebody in, and would make a little more that they would not cancel on the session.
Right. Yeah, Fort Lauderdale is the next one. But did I just hear Boston is after? Did I just read that somewhere? I swear I did. Okay, cool. Thank you. That was a huge help, and I think if we can incorporate some of these ideas, I took some notes, but I'm going to ask that you guys remind me of stuff, just because I'm getting old. I lost too many things this week, so my memory has not been good this week. Cool. Any questions about programming or anything else before we move on to the next thing? If you have great ideas, please. It's like you'll think of something 5 seconds after we hang up. Send me an email, and copy Autumn and as well. But great. All right, not too much left on the agenda. Leadership. Basically, I don't know. It's been an interesting almost year and a half now since I've been in here, sort of learning what everybody is and everybody does, and really get a sense of who's proactive and who's not. But real quick, if you would sort of let me know. We start thinking about Autumn, and I start thinking about sort of how the leadership's gonna pan out. Right now, leadership terms are only 1 year, and that's actually by design of it's actually the way that all commissions do it. It's not just us. Everybody who's in leadership is a 1 year position, except for the commissioner, which I'm on a 3-year appointment. I've got to learn a lot about this in the working on the commissioner's manual. I'll talk about that in a minute. But so if you're interested in either staying where you are or moving up, please. It's great to know those things going into the conference, because particularly if you're thinking about stepping down, I really need to know that, because I really need to, at the conference, really start to sort of see who's available and who's interested. But we don't make the decision until beginning of June, and then everything starts in July 1. I have to have the names in at the beginning of June, and I learned after my first year, don't make those decisions until June, because things change and the conference changes. But if you get a chance, I put the manual in there. Please take a look at that. That has all the job descriptions. If you see a job description, I'll be honest, I haven't looked at it in 6 months or a little longer. So I'm sure there's stuff that needs to be updated. But if you see something, let me know. But particularly look at the job descriptions and whatever role you're in, whether it be in the Light Lab or in a VC position, please take a look at that and make sure that your stuff is up to date. I've been trying to get the award stuff up to date. My question, I've asked you guys this before, and I'm going to ask you again. We are one of the largest leadership commissions. I think we have the largest group. Sometimes I feel like that's helpful, and sometimes I think it's not. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on whether or not we are a good size. We should be bigger. We should be smaller. And I don't know. So open that up. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think we're a good size, and we allow people to be included in, unlike some of the other commissions that your opinions are like, oh, go away.
I know, but I still get feedback that we're not.
I think if we can get it implemented, some fashion of this idea where the constituents of the commission as a whole work with their VCs in preparation for something, that will really help that idea. That will help dissuade some of those things that have popped up in the past, I think, because everyone will feel like they can be a little more involved. Their ideas are being heard, not just, I'm sending out all these ideas and they keep getting shut down every year, I'm going to go somewhere else. I think that's really important.
Right. Because one of our biggest challenges, at least particularly with ideas, is like session ideas. They all have these great session ideas in the middle of our meetings, and it's just like that's unfortunately not that's not the process. And I understand they get frustrated with that. But yeah, finding ways to reach out to them this time, when we're not at the conference. Sorry, go ahead. Somebody else say something.
Well, I was saying it may not be to the point where you actually hear it up there, because I'm sure people just gripe at you all the time. But it is talked about that a lot of people are very happy with how inclusive the Lighting Commission is compared to other commissions, and have actually made mention to me several times about it, that it's much more inviting. They actually feel like they're actually able to voice an opinion and have some kind of say in stuff. So I know you probably very rarely hear the good stuff. So that is being said, at least.
That is good to hear. Thank you.
I was going to say, I think that the model seem to be working towards is the right one. My problem if things get too big is that they become grossly inefficient. And I know all of us sit in production meetings where we spend an hour and a half talking about costumes, and then we get to spend, a minute and a half talking about lighting at the very end, right before we walk out the door. So, if we become that, I don't think that will be useful. But I think as long as you're dividing things up under VCs and letting those people sort of letting people gravitate towards the areas that they're interested in, so that the information, that the meetings that they're sitting in is something that's actually relevant to them, as opposed to a really big meeting. It becomes like a really big ship that you just can't turn. There's too many opinions, there's too many ideas, and it's really hard to get anything done. So I think the more that we can be broadly accessible by virtue of having lots of small groups, and have time where everyone comes together, but that we understand that that's more of an informational session. That's not the time to get things done. It's more the time to be informed. And then when you break into a smaller group with your VC, that's the time that we're actually going to work, and that we want input and we want you to become involved. To me, it's sort of keeping hold of both things. That to me works, and you avoid the pitfalls of either.
Okay.
Hey Todd, I'm sorry, I forgot that I have a production meeting here that I have to run off to. So just email me if anything comes up.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.
All right, I'm gonna say it now that she's off the air. Deanna's done a fantastic job in programming. I mean, she has just been. She's done a great keeping everything in line, rolling with the punches. So, I know I should have said that when she was on, but I just thought of it as she was leaving. An issue I'm having is getting particularly VCs involved all year. Some people are very involved, and anytime they're called upon, boom, I hear it in a second. And others, I don't. Anybody have thoughts? I mean, some of you are VCs sitting here, but thoughts or suggestions on? I mean, the thing is, we're always busy, and that's always the challenge. Is like somebody was saying earlier, it's like we're always running off to a million other things, plus then trying to do this stuff. I understand that. Ways I can make it easier to communicate. Ways I can make this easier. Get stuff out earlier. I don't know. I would love some thoughts or some suggestions here. Or is that the unanswerable question?
Actually, I have a question sort of related to that, I guess, which is, do any of you get contacted throughout the year other than by Todd or me or programming? Like, is there other business that needs to get done or is getting done that maybe Todd and I aren't aware of? Do people reach out to you as VCs, or is it just sort of the sort of trickle down stuff?
I know from, I'm the VC of health and safety, and I haven't had anything but from you guys and of course the Light Lab stuff. So I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing something else or not.
I've been in contact with just a few people from within the commission. Most of the other contact has been from the history working group, and then just from Todd and you guys.
Okay. Yeah, some of it is, there's not a ton of stuff to do other than supervising sessions. And one of the big things that just sort of hit home was, and again, what made me start thinking about this again was, I've been on an adventure, to say the least. We've been rewriting the commissioner's manual. So there's like four of us who have been rewriting this, and we're up to, I think, an 8 hour. We've done 8 hours of just online going through line by line. But this is one of the things that came up was about leadership, and we're not the only commission that feels this or has this problem. But one of the things that we were trying to define was a VC position, which is that's somebody who is sort of contributing all year long, as opposed to maybe a rep or something like that who only contributes a little bit. Which is definitely one of the reasons why we wanted to, when I did Light Lab, it was just a chair of the committee, and one of the first things we did was bringing that up to a VC position, just because, because it is so much work, and I know Brian is as the co-chair has seen a lot of that and knows how busy that is. So that was just what sort of started me thinking about that and thinking about downsizing. But I agree. I think I just got to do better about communicating what I need, and maybe that'll help. And there's a few people I know who have trouble. Okay. Any other thoughts before I move? Well, actually, that was the last thing I had was the commissioner's manual. I just want to tell you about sort of the commissioner's manual, and once we get that in a little better shape, I'll send that out to you guys, and you guys can look at it. I just had a thought, do I need more committees? I don't know. Dividing the work up a little more. Things like if I need the manual redone, instead of me redoing it, just getting 2 or 3 people together. And again, that's getting more people involved, more people. I'll start trying to find ways to do that. But as I think Adam is watching, I think I just got a text from him saying he's watching. Trying to just get that group started, and getting that one person sort of lead and take the reins has been the challenge, I think. But I do got to say, though, it seems like Light Lab's really working well this year, and just clearly by the people who've been showing up to these meetings, I know that you guys are working hard. So, anything else we need to cover? Any other thoughts? I'll open it up to the floor. Anything that we need to discuss that maybe we haven't before we go?
Going back to the question of whether if there's too many people or too little, too few, crazy thought. I mean, going back to, I think Nate has something going on with that group idea. And so maybe instead of being a VC of this or that, there is a group of VCs, 3, 4 people that just kind of together they tackle all the topics. So where one is busy today, maybe somebody else in that group is not busy. Since the biggest factor seems to be time commitment year round, that way, instead of depending on one person, you're just looking to the group for an answer. I realize it's a crazy notion and requires a lot of restructuring, but just a thought.
That's actually a great thought, because I think the thing that sort of saved me the past year and a half has been the fact that Autumn and I have been doing this as a team, because I know if I get busy and I need her to take care of something, she does, and vice versa. And actually having Deanna as that third, sort of person has really been helpful. So is there a way to structure it so that, there's either a backup or VCs help cover each other's areas, so that if all of a sudden a session dies, like the PDW that died, if let's say Kurt was busy, that we had somebody else who could sort of back up and jump in and help. I think that's a great idea.
I think that one of the things that and I in this point I'm speaking strictly from my own experience. There's a little bit of a mutually exclusive challenge in that USITT is not something that, if you've not been involved with it for a while, I don't know how I don't know everything that you do, Todd. There's some things that I know, but there's a lot of other things that I'm sure, you would say, oh, I do this too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. That sounds like it takes a lot of time. So you do kind of need to acculturate people to what needs to be done. On the other hand, our years are not consistent in terms of the workload. And there are times, for instance, that I feel pretty good about how fast I get back to you and Autumn on things. There are times that I know that you sit in my inbox for a long time because of tech. There are also, part of the reason that I did not do as much this off year is because of things that were happening with me with tenure and, having a new baby. And so I knew that if I took on a front row, post this year, I was going to be the worst member of the commission that you could possibly ask for. So, I think if there's a way to sort of build in a little bit of agility to however the structure gets put together, so that in Light Lab years, we're able to sort of expand and we have people that have that sort of through line of knowledge. They've done Light Lab before, they kind of know what's going on, but they're able to bring other people in a meaningful way and give them ownership of things. But then, responsibilities can trade around. I don't know. I think it's a really difficult problem to solve. And then on top of that, everyone else is really busy. I don't know that you're going to communicate your way out of it. So I think, when you say, oh, I just need to communicate better, I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is that we're trying to solve a really difficult problem with people that are involved and invested. But at the end of the day, if I have 3 hours to spend and my choices are getting the thing done that pays my mortgage, getting the thing done that gets me my next gig, or working on the thing for USITT, I got to tell you, it's not going to be the first thing on the list. And that's unfortunately just the way that it works. And so I have to wait until the time is right to work on it. I don't know how to build that in, but I think if we figure out what the problem is, we'll come up with a solution. If we're saying, oh, well, it's a problem of communication, I don't think that's the problem that needs to be solved.
No, you're right. We are one of the busiest groups of people. We're extremely busy group, and then to add extra stuff on top. But I totally get it. Before I forget, one of the things I did want to mention in the future of the Light Lab, and Brian, I may let you elaborate on this, which is Light Lab may be more constant than in the past, as opposed to every other year. You're talking about expanding for Light Lab. It might be expanding to basically what we're talking about is, and again, this is something Brian were telling me that as they've been meeting and talking, is that special events would like us to. It would be nice if we could help handle the lighting on the years that it's not Light Lab, just to help staff and get things going. And I know that there's dreams of maybe expanding programming too, but I don't think we're there yet. But Brian, did I say that right? What did I forget?
Well, and the idea of having a studio every year where we can have that to get back some of the hands-on touching the consoles that we've lost by joining with special events, that it's allowing us to do it and have the money for the gear and all that, but we're losing that opportunity for as much hands-on. And so the idea of having a studio every year where we can do hands-on project type stuff, and even Ron's got some ideas and some things on the showroom floor that seem like they may be working into our favor for that idea as well. So
Okay.
I don't know if you can actually hear me now. Can you?
Hey, yes, we can. Oh. We had you for 2 seconds, Eric.
Oh.
There you are.
Well, if you can still hear me, I think, one of the things, at least from my perspective of trying to produce the room, is that it's helpful to have a similar team each year. And, if this year is a Light Lab year and there's, 10 people involved, that next year I still have to put in all those lights for everything else. And, to switch to a different team doesn't make any sense. And then we sort of try to figure out who's doing this and who's doing that. So I think if there's a more consistent, from the point that stuff shows into the room until it gets on stage, we still need that. And I think it's still opportunities for the students, especially to load in and, to get that guidance from all of us who are there. That I'm certainly very interested in that, and to try to at least keep that a through line. And if we think about, in 1 year, if the programming gets a little in the room and sort of goes up the next year, but that it, even though it might not be Light Lab, it's still Light Lab in some senses as a through line.
Great. Thanks. You were the person I was wanting to hear from, so I'm glad we finally got that working. Just while I've got you, Eric, was there anything else you wanted to say now that you do have a mic that maybe you weren't able to get in before?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, again, around the Light Lab, since, at least that I'm involved in so much, I think trying to figure out how can it work the best and how can what else we're doing in, the special events and just sort of the big main stage, how does that fit into what, the commission's trying to do, and how do we design, and like I said before, my goal, at least from a physical production, is how do we design around what you want to do? This year was dance, so we tried to design a theater for dance or a stage for dance and all those pieces. But really, how can we use all of the resources that come with it to push the mission furthest? And, how can we adapt? Certainly from a institute, we have to do the 4 big special events. But outside of that, it's totally flexible, and I'm certainly interested in how can we make it the most of what we need, as a commission and as an institute.
Okay. Thank you. Well, am I muted? Sorry. Oh, no. Okay, sorry. All right. Well, if any other one final call before we break off here. I did record most of this. I realized about, I think, somewhere around Light Lab that I hadn't been recording it. So I'm going to talk about it when we sign off. I'm going to talk about a few more things. If you did come in late, you want to hear just quick updates on awards, stuff like that, I'll gladly give those again. But any final thoughts from anybody? All right. Well, hey, I can't thank you enough. I know for many of you guys, it's beginning of the semester, or you're right in the middle of productions, and thank you guys for coming in and talking today. And if you have more ideas, please let me know. And again, let me just say, I can't thank you. I mean, clearly you guys are passionate about this because you're here today. So thank you. And let me see what I can do. I think we can implement some of these ideas that we came up with today. So if you want to sign off, go ahead and sign off. Like I said, I'm going to talk through those first couple of agenda items just real quick, just for the recording. But okay, if no business, all right, I'll see you guys later. All right. So it's just me and you, Anthony. So did you want to hear this? Do you want to hear what we went through?
I'm curious. Sorry, I came in late. I got backed up at another meeting.
No, that's okay. A lot of people did. So let's see. Awards. Just real quick, we did really well this year with DAA, whereas last year we did not do very well. But we got Fred through, and we're going to have a reception for him. The big thing is we're going to we need to pick next year's, and we need to do it better than we did this year. This year was kind of last minute just because of circumstances, but I'm actually going to put out a call and have people submit ideas, and then I need a committee of like 2 or 3 people to vet those to vet those choices to down to like say 4, and then what we'll do is we'll take those 4 and bring it to the commission and sort of make a decision. Okay, Adam's listening too. He was unable to sign on. He just texted me. Yeah, Adam, I'll call you as soon as I'm done here. Barbizon. I judged it this year. I'm glad I did. I learned a lot. I learned the criteria I think is really outdated. If you get a second, look at the criteria, because I swear to God, it's the same as when it was in 1999 when I won it. Yeah. But one of the things that we're looking for how one of the criteria is utilizing computer programs. And it's like, well, that's standard now. That's not. So I think we really need to look at that and find a better judging rubric for sure. The A&R committee is sort of getting back to me on that. I wasn't the only commissioner that did that this year, and several of us sort of figured out that we need some updates. So if you have 2 seconds, go look at that, and you want to send me some feedback on what that needs to be, I'd appreciate it. That's for everybody who's listening, maybe watching this later. Master Craftsman, we only had 2 people apply for that. We only had 8 for the Barbizon too. Surprisingly, these are just money on the table, Master Craftsman we had 2 people. One was one of my students, just because I had somebody and I put them forward, and somebody from Carnegie Mellon. So, but the problem with that one is we only give it every 4 years or 3 or 4 years. I can't remember which it is because it's on a rotation. And the people who helped me last year, I know some of you may be listening because, like Kurt in particular, I really like the list we came up with for the criteria for that. I think it was a really solid list. So thank you to everybody who helped us with that. Conference.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Quick question, Bob. With regards to limited number of applicants, at the regional meetings, not national, are people at regional reminded? If it's the Southern USITT that meets at, this year it met at the University of Alabama. Was there somebody there who was part of the Lighting Commission to remind people of these events? I'm curious why, our numbers, if that's such a low submission rate, I don't know if people are being reminded more often of the availability.
I think it's challenging. I think like National puts that stuff out. Like they're always sending reminders. They're always extended deadlines. I'm using every bit of communication tool I have, which isn't much. But the answer is no, they're not. And that's a great idea to reach out to those sections, and say, hey, listen, because we USITT, what are we, upstate? Yeah, I'm upstate. They had a fall meeting, and just have somebody there to announce those things would be great. It just helps all the commissions, not just ours. But okay, conference session updates. We're doing great. We haven't lost a traditional session yet. We lost 2 PDWs. The Hemsley might get cut again this year. They're trying to put something together. I don't know. We got to figure that one out. But we lost the 2 PDWs. One was low enrollment. One was low enrollment, and the presenters backed out. Which was sad because particularly the one on what's the protocol for that, I thought was just going to be an amazing session. But only 6 people signed up, and one of the presenters dropped out, and then the other guy didn't want to do it without him. So we were kind of stuck, and tried to find a replacement, but it just didn't happen. Light Lab.
How does this affect the lab plot and the load-in schedule and other things? Has Brian been brought in on this? Just as I'm still working on finalizing the plot based on what we're getting from vendors.
We're still golden on all the sessions in the lab.
Okay.
The protocol one was not one that was going to be in the lab. So
okay, good. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
No, yeah. Actually, that'd be a great one to have in the lab. We call it Tracy in the lab is what we'll call it. How about that? Sorry. Let's see. Light Lab, you already know about that, but Light Lab's going pretty well so far. The challenge has been where in the past we might have had more vendor contact, we have less vendor contact. So just trying to get, I can see the look on your face. Yeah. The thing I got to remind everybody of is when it's hard to go to national and say we're not being able to help until the point in which, and I know this is probably the wrong way to do it, but until we say we're not getting something for a session, it's hard to. I mean, if we're getting what we need, it's hard to say we need to change the process just yet. So I really want, and the first year was, because this is our second light lab with Ron, and this is his third or fourth. I mean, he hasn't done that many of the he's relatively new. So the first one just sort of worked out because literally Josh, I think, just did everything. And now that we've sort of expanded out to more people, want to get more people involved, we haven't been able to sort of get that into the routine yet. And it really is, the Light Lab is really the Light Lab in the special events room, which it's the new reality. And, I think in many ways we're getting more than we used to. So, but we lost some things. Volunteers, it looks like we're good. We're doing good on volunteers. We're doing good on student volunteers. We're doing good on other volunteers. Just going through the agenda here. Special projects. Adam, the report I gave was that we're still working on them. That the lighting graphics is currently getting ready to send out a questionnaire. I don't think you guys have sent that out yet. And some discussion started. I really enjoyed the discussion. I know you didn't want the discussions going yet, but it was, I think, a good place to start. And Lighting Networks is still dead in the water, and I got to have somebody who can take that on and make that thing happen. So I'll look at Anthony. No, I like I said, I tried. I couldn't do it. It's just we got to get the ball rolling.
Not my strongest niche.
Well, you know what I need? I just need somebody who can be on top of it, organize meetings, and get the right people together. That's what I need, But we'll get there. Projections working group, because I think I might have started the recording around here anyway, and then I'll stop the recording and then I'll just answer any questions you have. But okay, so the projections working group is there's going to be a session at the conference on Thursday, March 9th, 11 to 12:15, and we're calling it a working group. But the real goal of it is to get a lighting commission or a projections commission. That's what we want. The commissioners sort of started us on this path, and then because we're looking to it as commissioners, and then we sort of got tapped, Autumn got tapped to sort of head this up. So that group is going to meet and sort of start asking the questions of what could they do, who would be involved, what could we provide to the Institute, and hopefully by March the Institute will tell us how we can make this happen. So I think it's a really positive step forward. And for me, it would take off, like we were talking about with the programming, it would just take a huge chunk off of my plate if I didn't have to worry about projections too. And I know other commissions too, but I just think, like right now, the projection programming is so hit or miss because, nobody's looking at the whole thing. And sometimes we have sessions that are way too close to each other in content, even though we try just not to do that. But okay, I think that's sort of where I got to, where I stopped the recording, and I'm sure I did. And my God, if anybody is watching this video after the fact and you're still watching, you're incredible, because we're now at an hour and a half. So let me pause the recording real quick. I'll say goodbye to everybody there, and then let me just talk to Anthony real quick. I'm still going to be streaming if you're Adam, if you're watching streaming wise.